Today, we're journeying back thousands of years to ancient India to explore a really foundational era, the Vedic period. And what's so fascinating about it is that it's a story of tension, a deep tension between how a society is built and what its people actually believe.
So let me ask you this. How does a society just completely flip? I mean, how do its values, its beliefs, its entire structure get turned on its head? Well, that's the incredible story we're going to unpack today. The story of a massive transformation that happened right in the middle of the Vedic age.
All right, let's get our bearings. We're looking at a huge chunk of time, from about 1500 to 600 BCE. But this wasn't just one long, unchanging period. No, it's really a tale of two eras. You've got the early Vedic period, which is defined by this amazing text, the Rig Veda, and then the later Vedic period, which is where things start to change, dramatically.
So first up, let's paint a picture of that early period, the world of the Rig Veda. Think of a society that was constantly on the move, a pastoral society that was actually pretty flexible in how it was all set up.
Life back then was really dynamic. I mean, society literally revolved around cattle. That was the ultimate measure of wealth. And get this, kings weren't all-powerful rulers for life. They were actually elected by local assemblies, the Samiti, for fixed terms. The whole social structure, what they called the Varna system, was also fluid. It was all about what you did, your profession, not who your parents were.
And you can really see how open this society was when you look at the status of women. They held these remarkably high positions. They were scholars, philosophers, they were even composing sacred hymns and jumping into deep theological debates. Think about figures like Gargi Vachakamani and Maitreyi. They were revered as Brahmavadinis, basically seers of sacred truth.
Okay, so now let's jump forward in time. Because right around 1000 BCE, with new iron tools and the shift to settled farming, everything, and I mean everything, starts to change. This is where the story gets really intense.
Just look at this before and after snapshot of the Vedic age. It is absolutely staggering. You go from a nomadic society to a settled one. Those elected kings, they become hereditary monarchs. The economy goes from simple barter to using coins. And maybe most critically, the high status of women just plummets. And that flexible Varna system, it hardens into a rigid hierarchy that you're born into.
So how did they justify this huge social change? Well, they used religion. There's this powerful hymn called the Purusha Sukta that offers a metaphor for it all. It describes society emerging from the body of a cosmic giant. The priests from the mouth, the warriors from the arms, the merchants from the thighs, and the laborers from the feet. And just like that, a divine origin story cemented a permanent social hierarchy.
Now, this massive social shift was perfectly mirrored by an equally dramatic change in religion. Worship itself became something completely different. It went from these simple personal offerings to huge, complex public spectacles.
And a perfect example of this new scale is the Ashwamedha Yagya, the horse sacrifice. We're talking about an elaborate, year-long ceremony performed by a king to prove his supreme power over a territory. This was politics and religion all fused together into one massive theatrical event.
Even the gods changed. The early gods like Indra and Agni, they kind of took a back seat, and new figures like Prajapati the creator and Vishnu the protector rose to the top. But the biggest change of all? The rise of the Brahmin priestly class. They became the sole gatekeepers of the incredibly complex knowledge you needed to perform these grand sacrifices correctly. And the rituals themselves became unbelievably technical. This wasn't spontaneous worship anymore. No, this was a codified science, a cosmic drama in 3 acts where every single step, every single chant had to be performed with absolute, perfect precision.
But as the rituals got more and more complex, and as society became more and more rigid, a powerful countercurrent started to emerge. A new wave of thinkers started asking a pretty radical question. Are these huge external shows the only way to find truth? And that question sparked a philosophical revolution.
This revolution arrived in the form of the Upanishads. The name itself literally means the end of the Vedas, and that tells you everything. These texts represent a radical shift in focus, away from the outer world of sacrifice and toward the inner world of the self.
And right at the heart of this new way of thinking is this absolutely mind-bending statement, Tat Twam Asi, or Thou art that. This wasn't about pleasing some god out there. It was the revolutionary idea that your individual self, your Atman, is one and the same
with Brahman, the ultimate reality of the entire universe. So now you have these two competing paths to truth. On one side, you've got the path of ritual, or karma marga, which is all about external actions and requires a priest. But on the other, you have this new path of knowledge, or jnana marga, which is about internal meditation and realizing the truth for yourself.
So, what's the lasting impact of all this change, all this debate? Well, the Vedic age didn't leave behind just one legacy. It left behind two powerful and, you could say, conflicting streams of thought that are still incredibly influential in India today. It's this incredible paradox. On the one hand, the social rigidity that developed in the later Vedic period became the foundation for the caste system. But on the other hand, that philosophical explosion, the Upanishads, gave birth to the great intellectual traditions of India. I mean, Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism all have their roots in this great turn inward. And that kind of leaves us with one last big question to think about. It seems like the more rigid and structured the outside world of Vedic society became, the deeper and more profound its internal philosophical questions grew. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How do the very structures we build to organize our world end up shaping the deepest questions we ask about it?